Welcome, zombie fans, to this week's episode, Reanimated. We've been on a bit of a hiatus, somewhat of my fault. I am AJ Conrad, here, as always, with my intrepid and tolerant co-host, Stuart Tiffin. Hello, Stuart.
Good day. What's up? Hello.
Hello. So we had a bit of audio issues, so instead of doing our full reviews of Wrath and North, which was the season finale of season 2 of Fear the Walking Dead, we're going to do a quick recap. I'll be honest with you, I don't know that people are missing all that much with the recap as opposed to the full review, just based upon my feelings about the show. But apologies for the longer hiatus than anticipated. So we'll do that summary, and then we'll head into our review of Freaks of Nature, which came out in 2015. But before we get into all of that fun stuff, let's talk about a few of the news items that have been running across the airwaves. Other than, what's going on in the election, which I think could also be termed zombie news. But, let's jump into it.
Yeah. So the big thing this week was this report out of a Chicago lab. I don't know if they're a Chicago lab, but this Argonne science group who seems like they do like important work, global security work. And then every so often they'll do like a pop culture thing to get headlines just to raise awareness. And I think this is one of them. So they did a zombie takeover map of the city of Chicago.
Like a modeling, like outbreak map, right?
Yeah. Which essentially showed that Chicago would become 100% zombie, or close enough to it, like 2 million zombies in 60 days. And it's a very... it's a gimmick, clearly, but it's also to like prove their modeling software. And did you read the article where the Chicago Tribune one that I'm posting here, that they talk about how they actually developed it in 2009 to track MRSA, which is one of your favorite camel diseases, right?
MRSA is different.
I was thinking of MERS.
MERS is different than MRSA. Yeah. MRSA is the.
No, I don't.
Antibiotic-resistant plague that's, causing amputations and deaths everywhere in the U.S. right now.
Hooray.
Yeah.
Well, so it was actually developed for real things, and I'm sure that's like I say, this is just like a PR stunt. But it works for us because we get to see how this stuff might actually go down. And I'm glad that somebody's thinking about it in a way.
I am too. You may be hearing this right now, but I'm a little bit under the weather, and I could have used this zombie modeling, this disease modeling in my office this past week, because apparently whatever I have has been making the rounds, and it's like we have 3 different floors, and it's been kind of interesting to see who patient 0 was, and then how it expanded across the office, and it's a fast-moving virus, So hey, this would have been kind of a useful tool.
Yeah, this is the time of year when you get to watch all those vectors going through your workplace. Like I took one to my workplace, and it was a scorched earth campaign. No one was left standing by the end. It was great.
Yeah, no, this is definitely and the sort of usually the patient zeros in my office tend to have children, and it's like the children go to daycare, bring back whatever they've got, and then the parents come in. Like, it's pretty easy to see. So it's kind of this particular one has been just brutal, though. Like nobody's left untouched.
Well, if in this country I'm gonna get progressive here. If in this country we had better sick leave policies and less of a workplace culture that was like, you have to be at work, or you're failing, or if we were more about like, hey, when we're not feeling well, you should stay home, then this wouldn't be a problem, and we would have far less transmittable diseases.
I agree. I do think in this case, though, and often is the case, I think there's a lot of parents trying to escape the sick homes of their children so that they just don't have to deal with them. Yeah. I really do think that is the case. And so... And in some ways, I don't blame them. Would you rather be, in your quiet office, not dealing with that? I don't know. But I'm just teasing. No, I do think that that's a problem. And even, I'm guilty of it too. Like, I had a lot of stuff I had to get through this week, which I couldn't really do remotely. So I went in probably when I should not have. So
Yep, and just exacerbated the issue. I mean,
Yep.
that's how I did it too. But back to this argon thing. There's a chart halfway down the Chicago Tribune article. I don't know if you've seen it. I can copy you the link to the chart. And what's kind of interesting about this, especially when you extrapolate out and talk about the Fear the Walking Dead, is they say within 60 days, you've got an entire city of Chicago being 100% zombies or close enough to it based on 2000 census numbers, right? Actually, I think there's 2.9 million people in Chicago. So I don't know. They say no living humans though. So their model apparently was just this is a 2 million inhabitant Chicago. But what's interesting about it is the 0 to 20 day
Mm-hmm.
period on that chart, where essentially for the first 2 weeks, maybe a little more than 2 weeks of the outbreak, there are fewer than what is that? I can't even tell like how low that is. It's at least it's fewer than 250,000 zombies
Yep.
in the whole city. Um, and it stays really, really low. In fact, it only gets up to 250,000 by the 20th day. Before then, it kind of just skyrockets and it's uncontrollable.
Mm-hmm.
But by their model, you've got a 2 week period in an outbreak in a major metropolitan area to contain. And so that is interesting to me because of all the things that we've seen in shows like Fear the Walking Dead, their model of Los Angeles, which still doesn't make sense to me the way the city just kind of emptied out.
Yeah, it was not the best.
Um,
To me, and again, we're still guessing a little bit in terms of timeline because it feels like they play with time quite a bit on that show.
well, I told you the Dave Erickson. I think
Right,
his
right,
name's-
yeah,
Yeah, I told you that part where he said it was 60 days by the time we got
right,
to the beginning of season 2.
right.
But and also in the strain when which has a very similar transmission model in New York. I have no idea what the timeline is for that because between seasons I think they do a lot of time jumping too. But they've got like their quarantine zones and different neighborhoods that are getting cleared out.
Right.
And it's just you take this information and especially this chart with their timeline, and I think it's actually pretty interesting.
Yeah, totally interesting. And also terrifying if you think about this in terms of other things other than a zombie outbreak.
Yeah. The one thing that kind of takes me out of this scenario a little bit is when the scientists behind this are saying like, yeah, with more offensive strategy and defensive stuff. I'm like, okay, let's just chill back.
Yep.
You guys are like,
Getting a little too excited here.
yeah, virus doctors. I forget what those are called. Virusologists,
Well, there's immunologists and virologists.
virologists, and that kind of thing.
Right.
Either way, it's an interesting read, and we'll have some links to that. And there's also a YouTube video where it just shows it's basically just a white map turning red. So it's not that cool. But honestly, I think the chart is the coolest thing.
Agreed.
And the fact that they were working on this model for a whole year.
I know.
That's for a PR stunt. I think that might be a little bit of a waste of money. But okay,
Well, it's marketing, so there's always a budget for marketing.
sure. Yeah, they got a lot of exposure.
The next article actually freaks me out a little bit because if you think of it in terms of a wider world, it's kind of scary. And I had not actually heard of this until you put this up.
It's a super long article, so you probably haven't gotten to the end of it. I haven't. It's very long. But yeah, it's
But
Outside Online Magazine. Do you want to go? It's one of your favorite topics, so do you want to talk about it?
yeah, sure. So on in Hawaii, on several islands, they have been battling a feral cat issue. And this sounds like not like it would have anything to do with what we're talking about, except that part of why they have been battling it is because a lot of these feral cats have been transmitting toxoplasmosis to various wildlife, in addition to killing off endangered species and things like that. I don't know if you saw this. It was probably a couple of years ago, but basically there was this whole modeling that people had done about house cats and how many animals like birds and things like that they actually kill. And this is just talking about just house cats that are just let out and things like that. It wasn't even taking into account like feral cats. These are cats that are probably, hopefully, well fed, and they're going out and hunting anyway, and they just basically take out tons and tons of wildlife. Well, here on Hawaii, this is also in addition to that issue, there's also the issue that they're transmitting toxoplasmosis to various species, including seals and other things like that. And that's pretty scary if you think about it, because this causing death, and it's, wiping out some things, and this is just in this tiny environment. So there's been a big battle between two different factions. One are the people that are like, oh no, we need to feed and tag and neuter the cats and that'll take care of the problem. And then the scientists are basically like flat out like, if we want to protect the ecosystem of the island as it stands now, and even right now it's like super damaged, we need to just basically wipe out the cats. And so there's been failed legislation that would be banning feeding the cats, and it like failed to pass. The people that are basically saying that they really just can't do this long-term tagging and neutering and fixing kind of thing, that's not a solution, that they really just need to basically treat them as pests and get rid of them, have been just branded as cat murderers. And, I have to say, I am a cat lover and I'm an animal lover, but I'm definitely leaning towards the side of the scientists here, because once this is gone, you can't get that back, and then there's going to affect the ecosystem forever.
Yeah, I completely agree. When you paint it in the terms of this is an invasive species, and what do we do with other invasive species like wild boar or anything? Hey, guess what? You hunt them and you decrease their numbers, and potentially you just kill them off in that area. And the problem that they're having is, well, that's considered, cat murder. And there's this whole social and well-funded social element to that is fighting them on it. So
right, and they're like going out and like basically sneakily feeding them and doing all this crazy stuff. And I don't currently own a cat, but I definitely did in the past, and I will tell you, it doesn't matter how well fed they are. They do go out and hunt, and they do go out and do their thing and poop everywhere and do whatever they're gonna do. Like, you can't really contain that. So
unless you have strictly an indoor cat, which I've had in my life.
Right, me too. And I think that's the modeling that came out before, and the study that came out before was basically done to encourage people to basically keep their cats completely indoors, as opposed to let them out and basically have their impact on the environment that they were. And I think that they were somewhat shocked, and I admit I was too, at the numbers in terms of like how much damage a cat could do in one night, basically, just of hunting. Like, they're pretty
they go into
ruthless.
some of the numbers in the article, and it's like it's on the order of billions of mammals a year in the United States get killed by cats.
Yeah. And granted, some of those mammals are pests, but some of them are not. Some of them are endangered species of birds, and
no, that doesn't even count birds.
That's just like, I know. So anyway, there you have it. I don't know. I am curious to see what happens. I think what I find also disturbing about this article, and again, different things can be skewed, but the fact that people are still dumping animals, like, I feel like awareness should be raised on this island and on all of those islands about what's going on. Like, the population of people versus feral cats is kind of terrifying on a couple of the things that they were laying out there. Like, the feral cats are basically outnumbering people in some places. So,
yeah.
I don't know. I just think, at least here in New York, there has been problems in the past, and they're not just with cats, but there's also, I know this sounds totally bizarre, but there have been cases, and it pops up in the news. It has been popping up in the news the last few years, but basically rabbits that get bought for like Easter and things like that, and then people like will keep them. And here in my neighborhood, like maybe a couple years ago, they discovered that this woman had something like I think it was something like numbered in the hundreds of rabbits that she was just keeping in this random warehouse.
Oh, Jesus.
That were just like breeding and whatever, and not in good condition, and she just couldn't keep up with it. And this had all been sort of like, she was rescuing and trying to help out and whatever. And so there's stuff like this that happens all the time, and we're just not helping the problem. And I don't know. I feel like the awareness on the Hawaiian Islands absolutely needs to be raised on this. If it's affecting wildlife, like you're just playing with fire there.
Yep. But on to more zombie topics. What do you say?
Okay, sure.
I mean, yeah, toxoplasmosis is something we've talked about on this podcast many, many times because it has that effect on rats that we've discussed about becoming more amenable to being eaten by cats. But in this case, this is a little different. But
well, do you think that it means that seals just kind of like go out to the ocean, or like sharks eat me, or if like
these ones actually just die based on this
I
article.
know.
They just kind of float around and get lethargic until they pass
Die,
out.
yeah.
They just die, which is I don't really even see like a natural world best use case for that other than like what is the bacteria trying to accomplish in that scenario.
Well, in any case, all right.
Yes.
So on to our summary.
Yeah.
Wrath and North. So let's sum up the finer points of Wrath, which are that Chris, our fun little friend, is gone.
He gets an ignominious off-screen death that is sort of made on-screen through flashbacks, but it's super dumb that he doesn't even get, like, for such an unliked character, he should have had a very on-screen, like, he's been part of the group. Why couldn't he get a death scene that was like from his perspective?
Well, and also he's been such a, like, his character especially has come under fire from a ton of fans and things like that. Like, he is definitely somebody that people were talking about a lot. And, considering how much hate everybody had for his character, I feel like we deserve to have more of a death than we saw.
Closure.
And the way that they showed it almost made me think while we were watching it that it was not real. That somehow you were not supposed to trust the narration, but in fact it was. And I can't say I'm sorry to see him go, but I was actually very surprised that this is how that they handled it on the show.
Yeah, obviously, I feel like we have been saying, okay, yeah, he needs to die for several episodes. So they did it, but they just didn't do it. They didn't do it the way we wanted them to, which is it's really hard to please us. Ophelia also at the beginning of this episode makes it to the United States.
Right.
And then she gets immediately rolled up by some kind of Minuteman in the form of, I forget the guy's the actor's name already, but the dude from Sons of Anarchy and Deadwood, who's
that dude,
cool old actor.
Yeah.
Also, the story of Chris's death comes about through the capture of two of the bros that then Travis beats to death and also injures Oscar,
Right.
which then puts him in hot water. And Maddie and Alicia both say, "Okay, we're with you, Travis. If you have to leave the colony, we will too."
Right.
And that kind of just sets that up.
Yep, it sets all of that up. And then in North, we've got, a lot of stuff going on, but primarily we have our little enclave of survivors starting to gear up for the invasion of the drug dealers.
The much hyped,
and, I will say that this is a huge letdown and doesn't make any sense in the way that they do it. It's so disappointing to me and really kind of crazy that they just didn't defend their land.
yeah. All they needed was the two guys with rifles to start picking dudes off while they're in the inside the wall with the school bus.
Yep.
Because there are nowhere near as many of the raiders as they kind of let us think there were going to be. There's only about 20 dudes, maybe. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't. Yeah, it's and they all come in through a funnel and they all go through the wall. There's nothing like sneaky or surprising about the way that they come at the Colonia.
No.
But as we already established too, the Colonia is kind of on its way out. They're out of water. It's on a hill. There isn't a well, or if there is, it's got poisoned water. Either way.
Nick is their new savior, so that's all good. But it's also somewhat implausible when all the drug dealers come through. Basically they set the zombie or the walkers loose on the Colonia. and they implausibly just get rid of all the drug dealers, even though they had higher ground and could have easily gone up into one of the towers and like somehow escaped them. It just seemed a little bit ridiculous to me, but hey, that's how it worked out.
It just reinforces this thing I had when I was looking at any scene with the Pelicano. These guys seem a little too well fed and a little too comfortable, because you never saw them interacting with zombies at the Pelicano, right? They were always just shaking down humans.
I guess.
So, and then in this scene where they're like facing down zombies and they all shit themselves and run away, it's just like, yeah, okay, so how were you surviving in a zombie apocalypse in the first place?
And how are you so well fed? Like, how did you?
Well fed makes sense. They were sitting in the Pelicano. But
I know.
How did they not have a zombie thing to deal with at any point that kind of, gave them the huevos to deal with this,
Right. And then you've got Nick pulling and showing, with his little band of survivors from La Colonia to, their idea is to go toward the border because he's seen a helicopter. And the thing that bothers me so tremendously about this is that their interactions with the military to this point have been extremely negative. I don't necessarily agree with how they've painted the military, and this is something you and I talked about in season 1, which is like, oh, automatically everybody in the military is evil, and not to be trusted. But hey, that's the world that they have painted here, and they don't stick by that. Immediately Nick is like, oh, I see a helicopter, we should go towards that, without any fear or caution. And not only that, you're going to take an entire group of people, including children and elderly and people that can't necessarily fight for themselves, towards that without scoping out the situation first.
How trusting do you think the population of Tijuana is of the American military?
Well, right. So there's that too. But no, hey, they're going to throw on their zombie guts and like go toward the border with no fear whatsoever. But that's what they do. And now we're supposed to believe that. So I have to say I have a ton of problems with the plot lines of this show and how they are extraordinarily murky and inconsistent. It feels like this entire season.
Yeah. So Nick's short leadership of the leftover Colonia members comes to an end when they get shot at by whoever these Minutemen guys are. Nick gets kicked in the face. Lucy gets shot. She might be dying. It's like a chest wound. And any other characters that we might have been getting to know in the Colonia basically are dead or run away. And it seems to be the end of that whole story.
Right. And the other point that we should make about this is that, in the middle of a zombie apocalypse, the people are going to be expending so much energy and men and people and ammunition to guard the borders. I don't think so. No. So this is also completely implausible. And they're going to wait for this group of like ragtag little group of people and think that they're a threat. They can obviously see that there's children and all sorts of people with them. And like, it just seemed somewhat ridiculous how quickly they acted upon it. So again, Fear the Walking Dead disappointing me tremendously. And then we had of course, the scene where Madison finds out that Nick is still alive because she gets to comfort, what's his
Alejandro.
face? Alejandro in his last words. So
Nick went north or whatever. And also Strand stayed at the hotel. And this was supposedly because they're not done with the hotel cast and storyline yet.
So they need to leave him there to have a reason to go back or to somehow bring them together again.
Yeah,
so,
which means we might see Elena and Hector again in the future. But everybody else is pretty much dead. Oscar, Andre, those guys are... The mother of the bride, I guess, is still alive. But otherwise, it's just Elena, Hector, and Strand are there. The only people we care about.
Yep. So again, to wrap up and sum up, I had some hope that this season was going to do more and show more, and it disappointed me. It's been renewed for yet another season, which is, But, I still think that certain characters have a lot of promise. I just don't really understand what they're doing with this, and I feel like they need to get a real script doctor in and figure out what the heck they're doing with this. I still don't think that it's totally crazy. I mean, they've set up some kind of storyline where Madison is from Georgia, so I feel like we're going to find out some connection.
Texas. I think she's
is she Texas? But she spent time in Atlanta, right?
I don't know about that, but I'm pretty sure
she talked about it to Strand. So anyway, there's there's something there that I feel like we're going to see at some point.
Okay.
Do you want to talk about at all what happened on Walking Dead, or do you want to leave that alone?
Nah, I mean we'll get around to reviewing it. I would like to say though that so far, 2 episodes into season 7, I'm liking it.
Okay, that's a fair point.
Yeah. Which, after season 6, I was kind of like I was
know.
pretty done. Not done, but just tired of it and wasn't
Yeah.
feeling great about it. And I should also say that this is the point now where I have not read past.
Yeah, I haven't either, so we'll see what happens there.
Yeah,
So that's pretty
it's
cool.
interesting.
Um,
However,
Yeah, so let's now we can talk about our true review today.
which might not be very long.
It will not be very long, I can guarantee you that.
Freaks of Nature 2015.
Yeah.
What a flop at the box office. $33 million budget, $70,000 in theaters, but it was a limited release.
It was a limited release, and as I was, prepping for the show and looking at this and whatever, I was actually pretty impressed by the cast.
Crazy cast.
It's a crazy cast. I mean, it's got lots of cameos. Really, like, it's got Patton Oswalt,
Joan Cusack, Bob Odenkirk,
yeah,
Keegan-Michael Key.
got a ton of people.
Dennis Leary. Yeah.
I mean, it's really got this great Vanessa Hudgens. And it's really got, and I don't know, did you watch *Halt and Catch Fire* at all?
No. Wait, who's from that?
It's the vampire chick.
Okay. She was also in The Martian as one of, like, the
Yes.
science ladies.
Yep.
Yeah. I thought she was good.
She was great in that, except that a lot of people were really ticked that she was not Asian.
Because her
Because she
name's
was
Park.
supposed-
Yeah, she's supposed to be,
yeah.
like, Korean.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that was a thing. But she's very good in *Halt and Catch Fire*, definitely. So
Also, I don't know what Nicholas Brown is from. Braun?
Mackenzie Davis, yes. Nicholas Braun, he's in like I don't know if you like. He's in a lot of like teen movie type stuff, like like Sky High, which my niece really loves.
Okay. Oh,
you
is
ever
that
see it?
that's like the superhero high school movie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he was in that, and then like he's been like in a ton of things. Like
Oh, he was Tall Brian in Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. That's a really
Yeah.
small part, but that's a great movie. I don't know if you've seen that.
Yeah, that's a fantastic one. So he's been in a ton, and he's also been, on a lot of like TV. Like I have seen him several times in Law and Order in different roles and stuff like that. So, so there you go.
Yeah. Anyway, he was good. Honestly, the cast was good. I like this movie. I was laughing. The plot is maybe weak.
Rough.
It's just another one of these comedy zombie type
Right.
films, except that this isn't a zombie movie, and I didn't really know what I was getting into.
I didn't
but then-
either. I knew it was supposed to be tropey and tongue in cheek, and it definitely was, and it played that stuff to the absolute hilt.
Yeah.
But the script could really have used some work.
And
the
at same
editing,
time,
perhaps.
It was
I
what
don't
it
know.
was. But yeah, so they blended zombies, vampires, aliens, and eventually werewolves. But I like
all in a little bit of a I don't know, in a coming of age teenager film. So it addressed a lot of things like bullying and the cool kids and all that stuff at school.
also made fun of Twilight, and
Yes.
mostly it made fun of Twilight. It didn't really make fun of zombies because there has never been anything like Twilight in a zombie genre to make fun of.
Right,
Other
but the
than
Twilight thing was pretty funny.
it was pretty it was pretty hard to
Speaking
miss.
of Twilight and making fun of Twilight, so while watching a friend's child of ours, we were watching Sesame Street with her, and there was actually a skit with Cookie Monster where Cookie Monster plays Short Breadword, who has the cookie thirst.
Oh my.
Yes, and he's supposed to like control that so that he can marry Belly. So it was pretty awesome. So lots of people getting in on the Twilight poking fun, but this was definitely there was that theme running through this entire film.
Yeah. So zombies were there was an interesting mechanic with zombies where they got dumber when they ate brains, but they
Right.
always wanted to eat brains.
Right, because the brains were sort of like their heroin. So
Yeah.
they eat the brains, just become sort of mindless.
But the main character who becomes a zombie in this ensemble, it kind of worked for me. I don't know, like this was a dumb movie, and I wouldn't have wanted to pay to see it in the theater. But you know, seeing it now, I enjoyed it. It was a fine like living room
Yeah, it was fine
TV
for like a
experience.
rainy day Saturday afternoon or whatever, and it was silly and funny, and there were definitely lines that I totally laughed at and themes that they dealt with. I wish it had been a little bit tighter in terms of script and in terms of editing, but I mean, what can you do? And then the effects were what they were.
Not bad for
They
CG. I
weren't
mean,
bad for this, no, not at
yeah.
all. And so that was fine. I mean, it was just like it was not supposed to be serious at all. So, and that's where they went with it. And I thought that that was cool.
And I think they really let people like Keegan Michael Key kind of do his thing. I think they let
Yep.
him do a lot of improv
Hmm.
because any scene with him in it was just he was like this. He'd been working at the same high school for 97 years because
Oh,
he
he
was a
was
vampire,
awesome.
and he was so bitter about that. And rapping like having a vampire also be just like I hate my job.
Right.
It was some very cool stuff as far as letting their big cast members kind of do their thing. Like Dennis Leary also was full on Dennis Leary.
Yep.
Patton Oswalt's part was way too short, and Bob Odenkirk was great as Dag's father.
Oh my God, he was so good.
Him and Joan Cusack both
And
were
Joe
fantastic.
Cusack, just so great. So I enjoyed this. As a whole, it has some weaknesses, but I still think that this was kind of fun. I think it definitely belongs in a like the silly part of a Halloween movie marathon.
Like, where does this stack up in terms of Scout's Guide and Cooties
I
to
think
you?
it's well ahead of both of those.
Okay, yeah,
I don't know. I just felt like the acting was better, the script was better. I feel like I would go Scouts Guide, Cooties, this in terms of like third, second, first.
yeah, I would agree. So, and like I think we enjoyed for the most part, we enjoyed both of those films. We probably Cooties definitely more because of that star power there with that we
Elijah Wood, yeah.
Elijah Wood and Rainn Wilson. But yeah, like I enjoyed the interactions between the three main characters. For the most part, the story was fine.
Yeah.
It was about
I
getting
mean,
getting along instead of being like in an election year. Honestly, it's a good message.
exactly, especially in this election year.
Yeah,
But yeah, I thought that this was certainly. I mean, I don't think it added anything new, but I definitely think that it was fine. So if you're just looking for something silly to watch, it's definitely one of those. And it's in. I mean, you kind of know what to expect in this genre. It is what it is. Nothing's ever going to approach Shaun of the Dead for me. In terms of execution, but this is definitely a fine film. I'm surprised it flopped as horribly as it did, but I kind of agree with you that I would have been annoyed if I had actually paid money to see this in the theater.
yeah. That's really subjective. Like, what do I pay to go see nowadays? Like, when I sneak
Right.
away to go see a movie, it's to see something like Doctor Strange, which I did on
Oh,
Friday.
did you already see it?
Yeah,
What'd you think?
I enjoyed it.
Cool.
I wish I had like dropped some acid before I went to watch it, honestly, because the
Really?
visuals,
The
yeah,
visuals are supposed to be crazy.
it's nuts. Yeah, it's insane. I would recommend watching this enhanced in some way.
So I'm really excited because I'm holding out to see it because Alamo Drafthouse has finally opened up in downtown Brooklyn,
Oh, cool.
which is awesome. And as an odd part of this theater and what they've done, apparently they bought this House of Horrors wax museum from somebody, and they've set up the bar in there to be a like House of Horrors wax museum. So
Even still, I mean, after Halloween.
yeah, no, apparently it's a permanent fixture for the moment. I forget where they got this from, but so basically it's the theme of this bar. So I have not yet checked it out. Supposedly it should be awesome. I'll keep you posted when I go and actually do this, but reviews so far have been pretty good.
Yeah, good. Well, Freaks of Nature probably wouldn't have played there. I'm not a film business guy, but I feel
Nah.
like anytime I see limited release, you also see really low
Yeah, because
box
I mean, you
office
can't.
numbers.
But sometimes they do the limited release to see if they should be releasing it to a wider audience. So this must not have played up very well.
Maybe.
So Anyway, but again, I feel like this is one of those films that might have been fine. It might have been better off if they had done more of an online downloading campaign, like through Amazon Prime or something like that, or Netflix. This is exactly the kind of film that would probably do a lot better that way than in the theaters. Because you know, I think a lot of people would be comfortable spending maybe like $2 or $3 to watch it online, whereas they may not want to shell out $12 to go out to the actual theater and watch it.
And I think that this came out very close to Scout's Guide and Cooties within
Right,
the
so then
same
there's
calendar year, which does not set it up for success either.
No. So this is. I don't really have that much more to say. Do you?
We're done. We're done.
Cool.
But honestly, I would recommend it. So I
I
feel
would
like
too.
that's where I'm going to leave it. Is like, hey, check this out. It's fun. Popcorn, sofa, TV, and it's have a good time with it. So yeah, there's our kind of a hodgepodge of our podcast between wrapping up and summarizing yet another lost episode. I think this means our episode numbers are going to be off, but who cares? Just keep the archives will live on.
Yep.
So thanks though for listening to our recap summary of the end of Fear the Walking Dead season 2 and our mini review of Freaks of Nature, which we both liked, but we don't have all that much to say about it. Other than go see it. It's pretty funny. And next time you should hang out with us again when we start talking about Cell 2016, starring John Cusack. It's a Cusack week, back-to-back podcast.
I still heart them both.
And Samuel L. Jackson, as well as others.
Great. And that's, of course, based on the Stephen King novel of the same name. So looking forward to reviewing that with you. And if you have anything to weigh in on, like our lack of audio files, that's fine. And shoot us a line at reanimatedpodcast@gmail.com or send us a tweet, reanimatedpcast, on the Twitters. And until next time, ciao.
Alrighty. Bye-bye.